theme of going home, and in this particular passage from Mark's Gospel, chapter 6, Jesus does exactly that with interesting results. Jesus left that place and came to his hometown, and his disciples followed him. On the Sabbath, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astounded. They said, "Where did this man get all this? What is this wisdom that has been given to him? What deeds of power are being done by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, brother of James, and Joseph, and Judas, and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him. Then Jesus said to them, "Prophets are not without honor except in their hometown, and among their own kin, and in their own house." And he could do no deed of power there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and cured them. And he was amazed at their unbelief. Then he went about among the villages teaching. He called the 12 and began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them authority over the unclean spirits. He ordered them to take nothing for their journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in their belts, but to wear sandals and not to put on 2 tunics. He said to them, "Wherever you enter a house, stay there until you leave the place. If any place will not welcome you and they refuse to hear you, as you leave, shake off the dust that is on your feet as a testimony against them." So they went out and proclaimed that all should repent. They cast out many demons and anointed with oil many who were sick and cured them. So ends the reading of God's holy word.
Thanks be to God.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we take these few moments to attend to the sacred Gospel of Mark, to listen to the story of Jesus on the road, coming home bearing so much power and yet disempowered. Bless us as we attempt to understand these perhaps challenging words about home, about context, about the places within which we work and serve and love, that we might find in all places and times your power to be your disciples. We ask this in your holy name. Amen. Well, right from the outset, we might ask ourselves, why did Jesus even bother to go home? Was it a fit of nostalgia? Did he miss his family? Did he forget a tunic? Did he need to do laundry? That brings a lot of young men home. It's not as though Nazareth was the nerve center of the world. He could have sidestepped it very easily. But to use a very well-worn phrase these days, he went there. The idea of going home can seem pretty sweet sometimes, like those senior prom pictures, kind of bathed in that soft light, filled with fond memories until we get there. A few weeks back, I read the Messenger article about the old Robeson store that was reopened in Vine Valley. I went there as a kid. My father went there as a kid. In fact, the store dates back to 1898. And my recollections are of a lovely, quaint old store positively brimming with penny candy. A child's paradise, like Harvest Mill on the beach. Well, when I arrived at the Robeson store for its official open house, I found the place to be quaint and dark and disappointing, with only a single coffee maker. I didn't fault the new owners. It wasn't up to them to satisfy my childhood fantasies and recreate something that probably never existed in the first place. But the mind is a funny thing, how it works. We often create images of the past. They can be very strong, and they can be very wrong. And even if our memories are accurate, times change. And so do people. And it can be hard sometimes to shift gears from what we think of in the past to what the reality is in the present. I received an email from a seminary friend whom I last saw 33 years ago, June 4th. He was a crazy guy with a very off-the-wall sense of humor and something of a sailor's tongue. That was at seminary. Well, he went on to do prison chaplaincy work in California. Specifically, my friend was assigned to be the prison chaplain for Charlie Manson. Actually, I thought it was a pretty good fit. Well, the years rolled by, and as I say, a few weeks ago, he contacted me, living not on the West Coast, but on the East Coast. No longer chaplain, certainly not Charlie Manson's chaplain, and sporting an entirely new name. First name and last name. Now, I haven't yet inquired of him to know whether this was part of a witness protection program. I don't know. Charles Manson's dead, but you never know. But for whatever reason, my friend made some big changes. And we do. People do make big changes. They grow, they move physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And sometimes it can be hard for us to roll along with their changes. Well, when Jesus rolled into Nazareth, many folks may have remembered him as a young man, the carpenter kid. Mary's son, lived up on the corner with a gaggle of sisters and brothers, played goalie on the soccer team. I'm taking liberties there. But what is not an exaggeration is that people had him pinned down. They had him locked in a kind of box. A box perhaps made of frozen memories, rigid assumptions, maybe some really tight agendas personally. And those can be tough boxes. Boxes strong enough to even hamstring the Son of God. Scripture tells us that Jesus was severely hampered in his hometown, and that he could do very little, just cure a few sick people. I want one of Jesus' bad days. I'm imagining one of his bad days. I go over to M.M. Ewing, play a few tunes, maybe later will be there, Mary Ann. Then after we're done, I'll go across to the medical group, cure some people, and I'm done with a bad day by noon. But against his yardstick, Jesus was severely compromised back home. And to be honest with you, I don't know why or how. Was Jesus that dependent upon his surroundings? Doesn't the Son of God carry his own power source? Is he that susceptible to those around him? Evidently so. Years ago, an artist by the name of Jackson Browne wrote a song about a band getting ready to go up on stage and play. And one of the lines in this song challenges the audience. It goes this way: you can sit there and wait, or you can pull us through. Come along, sing the song. You know you can't go wrong. And I think in a certain way Jackson Browne articulated the very intimate connection between even a seasoned performer and those listening. Those listening can have a powerful effect on the ones performing. They can even make or break a performance. Jesus was in a box, a tightly constricting box built of doubts, assumptions, and fears, and who knows what else. He's Mary's kid, one of our boys, a good boy, so long as he doesn't get too uppity. But apparently he did, because we hear the folks took offense at him, and he was robbed of much of his power. So he did a very sensible thing under the circumstances, and he asked for help. Even Jesus asks for help. And he sends out his disciples 2 by 2. But he sent them out traveling light. No bag, no bread, no money, no clothes, other than what they wore. Clearly, I have not reached that level of spiritual maturity yet. In my car, I carry a bag, some money, change of clothes, and occasionally some bread. It might be a morning bun from Starbucks, but that counts. Not to mention the car itself. There are so many things that a lot of us routinely carry that we think are absolutely essential. But often they really aren't. Maybe helpful, but essential? No. I think things of all sorts can adhere to us over the time and the process of living. Things that we tote along day after day, year after year, often very unconsciously. But they can encumber our journey of faith. Nowadays, some of those things are techie things. Things like a computer, a cell phone, and a tablet, and a smartwatch, and a Fitbit. You know what a Fitbit is, don't you? That little thing you wear on your wrist. It tracks how much you exercise, sleep, and eat. It's like an electronic conscience. And there's the stuff that we carry in our minds and our hearts too, the baggage, the anger, fear, shame, guilt, all of which may have been entirely understandable responses at one point in our life, but they may be a bit outdated and they may become rather heavy to drag along. So we need to ask help sometimes to be free of those and help to free others as well. I assembled my new gas grill a few weeks ago, and I thought I'd be real smart and bring the big yellow toolbox up out of the basement to be right up there on the deck for the project. Because I've been burned before. When you leave the toolbox in the basement, thinking, well, I just need this. And by the time the task is done, you've walked into the basement 13 times, and you basically have every tool you own assembled in front of you at the work site. Well, wasn't I surprised to find out that by the time the grill was put together, I used a grand total of 2 screwdrivers and 1 wrench. Meanwhile, stumbling over the toolbox in front of me on the deck the whole time. Can't win. I really didn't need all that. So much of life can seem so indispensable. Several days ago, I just sat in the church study for a little while, reflecting on my 15 years coming up next week. Just gazing around at the office, looking at all the stuff in the room. I estimated maybe about 100 books on the shelf, about 1,000 paper clips, several old deceased tape recorders, and maybe half a mile of extension cords. Probably all very useful at one time or another, but essentially most of it cluttered. Now, it kind of hit me while I sat there. That while all that paraphernalia can at times seem useful, what really is needed most is a deep reliance upon God and a deepening relationship with God. True enough, Jesus did allow the disciples to take a staff, but not the way some of our elected officials take their staff, in a jet. In Jesus' day, staffs were a lot cheaper, just simple tools of protection. They didn't require being fed or lodged or paid. They were really quite simple, just a stick. But sometimes I think it's easy to dismiss the simple. It can't be that simple. Maybe the message of Jesus was too simple, even if it wasn't easy. Charles Dickens, of all people, once said, and you got to listen carefully to this one, it took me a lot of times to think about this. Charity begins at home, and justice begins next door. In other words, at least as I interpret it, It's so much easier to point the finger of justice at somebody else next door. Jesus made the mistake of bringing justice home. In fact, he brought it into every home. And it wasn't always welcome. And it still isn't. We often make it pretty complicated. Maybe because if we complexify something enough, we'll avoid the full brunt of the gospel challenge. Fact is, whether we're back home or somewhere else, I think the message is we have what we need. We have the smarts. We have the courage. We have the help. Enough to come back home even, toting along with us love, justice, and peace, and in so doing to change the world. Right back home.